what we're going to do is write some C# code and make a simple user interface, and then in the next video we'll improve the user interface with Ajax and jQuery to make it a little more interactive. So, make a new website in this case. Yeah, an empty website is fine. Click OK. Let's go to the Solution Explorer. Let's right click in here, add a web form. The name, that's fine. Click OK. Alright, so at first, of course, we have nothing. So the first thing we're going to do is this. Type enter name, and then from the standard here, place a text box next to that. Alright, then type something like enter email, and next to that place another text box, and then enter date, and place next to that another text box. And now here further you're going to place the following: validation. What we're going to do is this. Somebody has to enter a name every single time, so grab from here a required field validator and just place it there below. That'll do for our purposes. Now the email is the same thing, but on the email we need a required field validator, and we also need the correct format of an email. So grab a regular expression validator like that, and let's say that on the date all we need is that it's required. That's it. Now, in order to avoid getting weird dates and what have you, under all of this, we're going to place from the standard here a calendar control like that. There you go. Alright. Now, if you go to source view, if you don't like the layout that we have right now, you don't have to keep it, right? You can take the validator, for example, here, and move it. Or if you want, you can do it this way. Grab the validator here, and then shift it over. Take that validator, shift it over. Take the next validator, shift it over. Take this validator, shift that over. There you go. And here you can delete spaces now. Like that, okay? Not too far, obviously, because then the calendar goes away. Alright. And at the bottom, what we're going to place is a button. So grab a button, put it there, and under the button we'll place a grid view. So from here, on the data, grab a grid view and place it there. There you go. Okay. Alright, so let's go through the procedure here one by one. First of all, we have the name box. This is text box 1, that's the ID, and we have the required field validator. So select the field validator and look at the properties, and you see where it says error message, say something like, must enter name, and then further find the property that says control to validate, this one here, and then choose text box 1. So that validator will act on that box. Alright, now go to the required field validator for the second one, and now this one here, say we'll must enter email, and then the regular expression validator. I should go back to this one for a second, and again you gotta set the control to validate property equal to text box 2, and then the regular expression validator, say here must be correctly formatted. And now find the property that says validation expression, expand that, And here you have a list of common things to validate, to whose format we check. So let's see, what are we entering? So choose this one. And this stuff that you see below is a regular expression that represents the correct formatting of an email. It might be unrecognizable except for the @ symbol, you see? There you go. Regular expressions are a vast topic. They're very powerful for our purposes. We just know that they exist and we can use them, and click OK. And they will allow us to ensure that an email entered is properly formatted. Alright, now the last one here again for the date. I'll make sure that this acts on the correct control. Control to validate would also be text box 2. There you go. Required field validator. Change that to must enter date and make it act on text box 3 like that. Okay, so now let's build this to be sure that it builds correctly. Alright, now because we have database controls and what have you, we have to now drag a database control in here. So SQL data source in other words. And now you're going to configure that. Don't make any connection. Type the name of your server. In my case it's Tom's PC /SQL Express. Choose the drop down. Choose the database we made it previously. Test that connection. Click OK. This is the connection string. Click next. You can leave that as the same connection string. That's fine. Click next. Choose the fields. Make sure here now you choose under advanced. Generate, insert, update, and delete statements. Click OK. Click next. Test the query. There you go. Finish. Alright. Now click this grid view and then set the data source of it. And then enable paging, sorting, editing, deleting. There you go. Okay. You can probably auto format that to say professional so it looks a little more clean. Click OK. Alright, so that's that. Now, there we are. The text boxes that we have to somehow be read, and then the values have to be stored. So, click the button here. Let's change the text on the button to something more informative. So type save. And now you're going to double click this button here, and it brings up the event or the code to be executed. Now let's go through the code. The code is a little interesting. It's fairly elaborate, but this is a fairly realistic application. So first, in the user section here, you're going to have to add a couple things. You have to add using system.data and then using system.data.sql client. See? And let's see what else. Also add. Let's add this one also. Using system.data.sql and one more. Using system.data.configuration or just system.configuration like that. Okay, this will extract values from web.config where the connection is stored. Alright, so that's that portion. Alright, at the next point let me delete this, and now we take a look at the code. What is the code to be run? Well, the code will be this. And actually one more thing that we have to do. There's always one more thing with programming, but specifically Solution Explorer, expand the web.config. And what we have to add here is a bit of code that will enable validation, otherwise we will have errors. So what you type is this. Let me put this down below, and this is what you have to type here. Have we created? Type app settings. There you go. And then add key and then set that equal to, and now you type validation settings unobtrusive validation mode and then value equals none. There you go. So make sure you have this key set or it will not work properly. You're going to get error messages to the effect of being told that something in jQuery is missing. Alright, so that's that. Alright, now here, let's go to the code that connects everything. So this is what we're going to say. String constring equals configuration manager dot connection strings, and now you're going to extract the connection string, which is samp and then connection string. That's how we saved it, and then dot and then connection string. So extract that, and then you're going to make a SQL connection. So SQL connection con usually, and set that equal to new SQL connection, and then constring. That's needed to make the connection. Right, then you're going to make an SQL command, so command, and then cmd equals new SQL command, and then type the name of the procedure. So in our case, remember, we called it proc insert in SQL Server, and then comma, and then con, and close with a semicolon. Next stage, type the name of the type of procedure, so cmd dot command type, and set that equal to command type dot stored procedure. And now we're going to type this cmd dot parameters dot add with value. So this will allow us to add values that can be then passed into the stored procedures, so we can save them in the table using the insert statement we made in the first video. Alright, so now we're going to put double quotes, that symbol, name, and now this value would be read from the text box. So type text box one.text, like that, close that with a semicolon, and repeat cmd parameters dot add with value. Alright, that, and then symbol. Next stage, you're going to read text box 2, so that would be the email, comma, text box 2, and then dot text, close with a semicolon, and then the last date, the date that it will be saved, will be read from the calendar. We can type cmd dot parameters dot add with value, and now you're going to say date saved, and then calendar dot selected date, and close out with a semicolon. Alright, so this will be the selected date from the calendar and save it for us. There you go. This approach avoids having to, have people type dates, and because people will mistype them and not format them correctly, all kinds of things. This is an approach. Alright, now what we're going to do is use a try catch kind of system or a construct. This allows us to try to execute things, and if they don't work, then we can handle that gracefully. So we're going to try to open the connection, because after all, maybe the network is not available and we can't. Then you're going to execute the non-query or the stored procedure. Alright, the next stage, if a message, and this could be refined, but for our purposes, I just want to make you aware that this exists. Type catch and then exception, and then ex, and now type here response dot write, and then ex, and then message, like that. So this will write directly to the HTML response dot write. Okay. And the last thing that we're going to do is run a finally block, and this runs no matter what happens above. So this is a good way to ensure connections are closed. So con.close, like this. Now there's also the more modern using version of this, but this one will work, and the using is equivalent to this logically, even if the implementation might just be a little different. Alright, now let's see, let me comment this code out on the bottom. Alright, so we have our basic connection code. We have our default layout here. Okay, and we'll improve this, so it looks pretty and slicker in the next video, but here this will do. Let's build all of this. And make sure you have in web config that the key set. And I will use Internet Explorer to launch this. And of course, the first time you launch an application, it's like cranking up an old car, right? With a crank. It takes time to get the whole system up and running. Sometimes if you do that and then reload it, it helps. Refresh the page. There it goes, okay? Alright, so here, let's take a look. First of all, if I just hit save, notice that it says must enter name, must enter email, must enter date. Okay, if you do this, we have a calendar, we can scroll through it, right? But the issue is that it resets the whole page every time. You see that? Alright, so that's an issue that's got to be fixed. Alright, let's put in some name here and then hit save. It says must enter email, must enter date. Okay, enter an email not correctly formatted, and now it says must be correctly formatted. So let's make up some email, click save, and now that's good, but no date is present. So click like a 30 over here. Okay, and that is a problem because we've chosen the date from here, but that date is not showing back in the box, right? We would like to click here and show the box, show the name, the date in the box also. Okay, so how can we do that? Well, let's shut this down. There you go. So in default.aspx.cs, we're going to add a bit of code. And the code that will run when something has happened in the calendar. So go over here and double click the calendar, and you see it says calendar 1_selection changed. Type text box 3 dot text and set that equal to calendar 1 dot selected date dot to short date string. Close that with a semicolon. It's a function. We can delete this. Right, that's a small improvement, but let's build this code. Right, let's relaunch it. There it is. And notice the second time, it's much faster. So now let's take a look. If I hit a 4 over here, you see how it inserts it into this? Right, and now if I put in something there, put in some kind of correctly formatted email, it's got to have the format of an email, not be a real email. Alright, and if I click save, alright, now we can't tell whether the table has been updated, so what we need to do is ensure that this control on the bottom is connected to this whole process. And the way to do that is simple. Let's close that. And then at the very bottom, after even connection close, type grid view 1 dot data bind. Okay, this will ensure that the new table is bound to the data grid or the grid view so that it's updated after we click the button. Alright, so let's rebuild this. And then launch Internet Explorer. Alright, so first of all, notice that, let's make sure everything is working, right? Can we delete records? We can. You see, they actually are deleted. There you go. Now, let's do this. Enter some string, something fake, some kind of fake email, right? Enter a date, and then hit save. And now notice that the grid view is nicely and automatically updated, which is the kind of behavior that we would like to have. There you go. Okay, so now everything is connected and working properly. In the next video, we'll add some additional formatting to the layout here, so it looks a little more pretty. We'll add jQuery and we'll add Ajax so that we don't get such severe flickering effects. Okay, when we make updates. Okay. All right. So, thanks very much, and I know this is a lot. This is a fairly realistic application. But all the code is available in the sidebar. Watch the video, try it a couple times. You know, the way I see it is, if I can figure it out, so can anybody else. There you go. Let's close that. And that's it. So, thanks very much, and I'll see you in another video. And of course, the one thing that you want to do is make sure that in SQL Server, if you click on the table and you view the data, that data is actually present. There you go, right? And it is present. There you go, that row. Okay? And remember, because we set the auto increment to true, these values here, the IDs, are automatically generated. That just tells you how many I've entered before, you know, making this work, figuring everything out. So that's that. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in another video.